It's almost impossible to quantify the consequences of this corporate scheme to raise oil prices. But a back-of-the-envelope calculation suggests the cost of Pioneer's collusion alone was about $200 billion a year in higher prices. That's thousands of dollars a year for every American family.
So I'm still getting tagged in this video quite a bit. So let's dive into a little deeper, okay? And the context of this is that Pioneer's CEO, Scott Sheffield, colluded with OPEC to keep oil prices high. And basically their evidence of this is some text messages. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to pontificate on whether what Scott Sheffield did was legal or illegal. I haven't seen the evidence. I do not know. But I will say the assertion that a U.S. oil producer or a fracking CEO, as they call him in this video, which, by the way, that's not a thing. There's no such thing as a fracking CEO. I don't know where you got that term. It's a big red flag for your knowledge of the industry. But the assertion that a U.S. producer who has no leverage and means nothing to OPEC could manipulate the entire OPEC cartel, could manipulate the king of Saudi Arabia and Vladimir Putin in this scheme is completely ridiculous on its face. We have only seen a U.S. president be able to do this one time in history, and that was under extraordinary circumstances. Here's one of the big problems I have with this video. This entire video blames Scott Sheffield for all of the high oil and gas prices during the Biden administration and his text messages. Not once do they mention the OPEC 2020 deal, which is by far the largest driver of everything that happened. Not mentioned one time. And the fact that the OPEC 2020 deal created OPEC going from 37 million barrels a day of production to 31 million barrels a day of production. That's not mentioned one time. So they blame Scott Sheffield and U.S. producers for this large increase in oil and gas prices in 2021 and 2022. But these numbers right here tell you what U.S. producers would have had to have done to avoid this. You may remember the other day I did a video on how we put a record number of wells on production in the Permian Basin in 2023, 6,000 wells in 1 year with 100 less rigs. At the average cost per well, this equates to nearly $50 billion in investment by U.S. producers to make this happen. What did U.S. production do in 2023? How much did we gain? We gained 700,000 barrels a day of production in 2023, with a record number of wells being put on production and nearly $50 billion in investment. That got us 700,000 barrels a day of production gains. In order to increase production at the rate that the person in this video is suggesting, and the U.S. government is suggesting U.S. oil producers should have done, if they were doing the right thing, what they should have done, we would have had to increase production by 3.5 million barrels a day in 1 year. By the way, that's not a thing that's ever happened. And that would have had to have incurred a cost of about $250 billion in 1 year. U.S. producers would have had to invest about $250 billion in 1 year to get oil production where this guy says it should be, because U.S. producers should make up for all of that lost production. So they should have invested $250 billion in 1 year to increase production so much to keep gas prices down because of Donald Trump's OPEC 2020 deal at a time when this OPEC 2020 deal had an end date. Yeah, we want you to spend $250 billion increasing U.S. production by 3.5 million barrels a day in 2021. That way we have all this production in 2022, even though this deal ends in 2022. I do have a question. when all of the U.S. producers in the United States would have had to have gotten together and colluded to create this $250 billion of investment. Would that have been illegal since it's driving down prices and not driving up? Because every U.S. producer would have had to have participated in this to get $250 billion worth of investment into new production. The whole purpose of this video and others like it, and the whole purpose of the messaging behind the Biden administration throughout all of this, has been to impose as much harm on U.S. producers as possible, because they see no political capital being gained by pointing the dirty end of the stick at where it belongs. And that's Donald Trump. Donald Trump made the deal. Donald Trump made the deal. And Joe Biden even tried to get the deal reversed. So in other words, this is a bunch of politics. And even if, and I don't know what happened, but even if what Scott Sheffield did was illegal, you have to be living on another planet to think that he would have that much influence over the OPEC cartel. You would have to be living on another planet to believe that he would have more influence over the OPEC cartel than the king of Saudi Arabia and Vladimir Putin. That's what you have to believe. The fact that these high oil and gas prices are constantly discussed by media and the Biden administration itself, and the OPEC 2020 deal has never been brought up one time, is mind-boggling. That is the equivalent of having expanded discussions about Nagasaki and Hiroshima without ever mentioning World War II existed. That's about what that's like.